but making the assumption of the timing, I'm assuming that's why, but I do not know that.
Okay, that's our Christopher Knowles there along Highway 12 in Lowndes County, north of the Steens area, near the intersection of Highway 12 and Steens Road and Caledonia Steens Road. Appreciate your help. I know you've got a busy night ahead of you. When you get something more, let us know. Thank you so much, and be safe. And again, thoughts and prayers with those folks in Lowndes County. This is about where Christopher was, and if we go back, unfortunately, and look at it again, that's almost exactly where that came through. So there's a lot of times we're like, well, we don't know if it's tornado damage. That's tornado damage that you saw a moment ago there, and frankly it's probably a little more significant down where Christopher can't get yet. Our Christopher Knowles there, one of a number of crews. Our Jake White and our Jake White and Gabe Maynor also, we'll be hearing from them here in a little bit. They're in the northern part of Lowndes County right now, continuing to assess things. As of 6:24, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon, as we're continuing to track our newest, most recent tornado warning that we've been monitoring for a while here that's exited Winston County. And I guess we always talk about those all clears. You live in Winston County, you're all clear from that storm. You're done. The storm is now north of the Lynn Creek area, or at least near the Lynn Creek area in northern Noxubee County, southern and southeastern Oktibbeha County, southern Lowndes County, where this is as well. As we revisit the wind mode here, it is still, a fairly pronounced return, right? That's a broad, strong return showing up on Storm Track Doppler radar. I'm going to have to force this to go to a different radar site here for a moment so that I can get a different look, because we're just far enough away that I don't have an excellent look at that. And I wonder if I'm just looking too high. Give me a moment, because we were looking higher earlier. I want to make sure I'm looking at the lowest scan, because I have such what looks like it should be a much bigger storm look than what we have there. So I don't know if this is kind of, sometimes we get what's called a side lobing error on the radar. I don't know that that's necessarily what we have here, but it's not impossible because of where that area is. Regardless of whether the nuts and bolts line up for this to be a tornado on the ground, the reality is that this is still a strongly rotating thunderstorm, and those have a tendency to get more organized from time to time, and this one certainly has been rotating strongly for a long time and could potentially at some point take that step once again. And so we've been tracking it close to around 40 to 45 miles per hour. So latest track here, and I'm keeping, we'll let it go back and we'll make sure that that kind of matches here correctly. I think our angle's correct on this. This is heading much more toward New Hope than it is toward Columbus proper. So luckily this means for folks that are helping out to restore power and do those sorts of things in the northern part of the county, where we've had that more significant tornado, this is not headed toward those locations. Unfortunately, there are some power outages down south, and this is unfortunately heading toward some of those locations there. So the concern is that that this could potentially produce a tornado again. So as we define it, as we've talked about it, this is Doppler radar indicated rotation that could lead to the development of a tornado at some point in the future. We're not at that point here at this instant, but certainly at some point in the future that could be the case. But certainly watching things extremely closely on this. Let me go and look. We have not touched on Lamar County in a little bit. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, and that one has exited the county. We're good on that. Okay, so coming back to this one, so I just want to make sure before we get in really close that there's nothing else we got to catch as well. Good. Okay, so let's come in really close here. Let's talk some county roads and things of that nature as we monitor this rotation that is a solid circulation. There's no question about that. It's just whether or not it's producing a tornado. And either way, I think we need to be in that tornado safe place. A sturdy structure, a small windowless room, wrap up in blankets and pillows, put on a helmet to protect ourselves from debris, and stay there until we can give you the all clear. A significant situation for sure already in the northern part of Lowndes County. This is in southeastern portions of Oktibbeha County, moving into southern Lowndes County pretty much as we speak. And a reminder that if your signal goes out, if you lose power, well, and I'll put that back up there. If you lose power, WTVA Weather, WTVA News apps, we do stream our live coverage there. And so highly recommend you pick up the app for that, just in case, because, power outages do happen. Now, also keep in mind, when power outages happen, a lot of times it takes down the cell network with it. So if you're watching right here and you have a loved one, a good friend that's in the northern part of Lowndes County, let's talk about this for a second. Just because you can't get a hold of them doesn't mean they're not okay. They might, it's hard to say. I'm not going to say for sure, but the reality is that when the cell network has a tendency to collapse in this situation, if it hits the wrong spots, if it hits the right things, this was rural enough that's probably not the case. We're probably still getting some phone calls in and out of there, but when power outages happen, that sometimes takes out cell signal as well. So if you can't get through, take a deep breath, and hopefully things are all right for you. We luckily have not heard reports of fatalities. We've heard reports of a few injuries, but we don't know really any details on that. We had entrapments earlier, and I might just be overlapping that to say entrapments and injuries on that. And those are two completely different things. We know for sure we had entrapments. We'll have to find out more information as to whether or not we had injuries at some point here in the future as our crews down there continue finding out what we're learning. And of course, the power outages situation continues to improve. We mentioned the southern part location south of the Columbus area. That power outage that was significant at one point has been resolved. There's still obviously significant, you saw the power lines down, significant power outages up here closer to Steens. As we're kind of looking on here, this is all the spots where that tornado came through, kind of south and east of the Air Force Base. A lot of power outages. I would say the majority probably a power outage situation at this point here for those folks. I'm going to double check on the north side of Columbus to see if we even have DOT cams at this point here. It does look like we at least do central part. It's reasonable that we probably, still do at this point here. And things look considerably calmer than they did a little bit ago as this line was moving through there, as this significant tornado-producing thunderstorm was moving through those locations. As you heard from our Christopher Knoll, he was looking at locations where there was still water spewing. A thing to keep in mind is that if you smell gas, and I'm talking to people that aren't experiencing this right now, and hopefully don't have to experience this tonight or in the future, but obviously if you smell gas, we got to get out, we got to get away. And you sometimes end up with natural gas leaks, obviously power outages, those power lines, you never assume that they're dead. And obviously thoughts and prayers with those folks in Lowndes County tonight. Current time is now 7:31, and we're watching a tornado warning in effect for, in particular, Oktibbeha and Lowndes counties. I think it's just north, probably our rotation, just north of the Noxubee County area. Brooksville, we're watching still for folks that have some Brooksville addresses there. This is likely a little bit north of you. And I mean, this has been strong and consistent. And if I measure what the wind change is, it's over 100 miles per hour. And a lot of times that alone would be enough to have me, stomping around saying tornado, tornado, and clearly there is that concern. The thing on this storm that makes it tricky is that when you look at where that interaction is, where it has that potential that this could be, 100 mile per hour change, right near Rice Road and Starkville Road, west of Crawford, southwest of Penns, right there is where we had it. Well, if I circle that area where we have our peak rotation, you'll also notice that it kind of ends up in that hole. So we've talked about this hole a number of times as these storms have developed these what we call bounded weak echo regions. It's a sign that the drops are being forced to rotate in a way where there's, it kind of looks like a hurricane on radar, frankly. And so that hole there in the middle tells us that, it's a strong area of circulation. So that's the place where there obviously aren't as many raindrops because of the overall structure of the thunderstorm. It's a sign of strength in the thunderstorm. And so the fact that I need to make sure that we don't have another one here, which we could, and clearly the radar is saying, hey, look up. So let's look up. We'll come to the radar layer, and we're going to go up a couple of scans here just to kind of see whether or not we have that same kind of structure up there. And it's just, we do. On that one scan up, we still have kind of that area where you have the circle and you have it kind of circled around it. So once again, watching for Lowndes County extremely closely and Oktibbeha County. This is in the southwest portion of Oktibbeha County. Looking at the wind mode here, I don't know that our pixel-to-pixel wind change is as high. We're showing 83 miles per hour. That's still pretty significant and could be a tornado trying to form. This one's been trying for hours. Let's hope there's nothing special about Lowndes County and it just decides to move on and continue trying and not succeeding. To answer the question, what could potentially be significant, I want to go back and I do want to look at an hour plus loop on this here. Notice how, and we mentioned this over and over again, that the storms that have clean inflow, see how there's nothing southwest of the storm when it moved there north of Columbus and produced a strong tornado? So the fact that there is nothing south of that means it had clean inflow. That varies substantially from our current tornado warned thunderstorm here, where there's tons of rainfall south. That cools the atmosphere, that saps some of the energy that these thunderstorms have to work off of. And so if I'm looking for a positive, and always looking for a positive, that's my positive sell for you. If I'm looking for a negative, the reality is we still just have to, don't want to take a chance, and we need to get to that tornado safe place and be in that tornado safe place. Now, updated location near Starkville, on Starkville Road, southwest of 45 alternate. Let's go to wind here. We should have hit this a couple minutes ago. So here's where our greatest area of rotation is. We show no more than about 2 miles and 3 minutes from crossing 45 alternate. So if you know some folks traveling between Artesia and Crawford along 45 alternate, tell them no. Tell them to stop. Keep them north of Artesia, keep them south of Crawford. Don't let them drive through. Because as we say over and over again in this situation, some of your most vulnerable locations are going to be in cars, trucks, mobile homes, and of course cars and trucks are what drive down highways. We're less than 3 minutes from this crossing 45 alternate. If you know somebody that might be traveling along 45, US 45 on the east split there, east end of the split, we're still about maybe 14 minutes away from that location. I want to recognize, of course, a few folks here as we try to as much as we can. Just a reminder, Lindsay sending in this shot here, and a reminder that it is okay to go to shelter and teach your kids the responsibility that goes along with that. I appreciate Lindsay for sharing her safe place selfie with me. Those helmets, good job, boys, in there, just waiting, letting it get through. I appreciate that, and hope all those folks are safe and certainly making the right choice there and mentoring our children to do the right thing. And of course, those tornado safety rules, you want to go to the sturdy structure, the lowest floor. In the middle of that lowest floor, sometimes it's a bathroom, sometimes it's a closet, sometimes it is a hallway that doesn't have windows. But in either of those either of those cases, we certainly want to make sure to put as many walls between ourselves and the outside as possible. Hold on a second here. I'm looking our. So we have a train spotter report of a gas leak, and this would be Old Country Store near Caledonia in the Steens area. So we were talking about it a minute ago, and unfortunately, that's not what we want to hear. But a report of a gas leak out of this, and we'll make sure the newsroom hears this for a second. I'm gonna get Kelly's attention. So a report of a gas leak from a train spotter near the Old Country Store in Caledonia in the Steens area. So clearly not good. Might be worth a push, Zach, just to make sure folks in that area kind of know. Look at this most recent storm we're still watching as I kind of pull off our severe weather safety rules. The rainfall mode here is just not overly impressive. It's just kind of hard to argue with what the wind continues to show over and over again, which is, I know I'm moving it a lot for there, but a pretty consistent area of fairly impressive, strong rotation. And I in no way would be shocked if there's a lot of jittery folks there in Columbus right now. You've had your fair share over the last few years. Unfortunately, we have another one coming. The positive I can tell you is that it's not as strong as the one up north was. That's not to say it won't get stronger. But at least I can tell you that at this point here, we cannot confirm tornado damage. We cannot confirm tornado debris. Unfortunately, both those things are things we can do after the fact, confirm those. So for folks that are here in Lowndes County, this one is heading slightly south of the main city grid of Columbus. I want to double check because I do think in the last couple minutes here it has turned slightly more north. So I'm going to reduce this to a 15-minute loop just so that I'm not distracted by the old data. And so we're going to circle where it is now. and circle where it was at the beginning of this loop so I get an accurate angle. And so we're just going to match up our storm track based upon those two there just to make sure it lines it up. Yeah, I still, south side of Columbus, certainly we're watching Eastwood Hills area there on the southeast side of town, and obviously New Hope in the path of this storm, if it is able to produce a tornado, and I'll bring this up the current time on that. It's certainly trying pretty hard, and even the National Weather Service saying that that's a fairly impressive spin southwest of Columbus. I agree. So it's strong enough that we need to take this seriously. Okay, let's clear that off. Let's kind of reset here for just a moment. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologists John DeLusick and Maggie McCauley, our Gabe Maynor, as well as Christopher Knowles and Jake White are all down in the Lowndes County area gathering information that we can provide for you. The reason we're not throwing about on your screen right now is they're trying to make sure we get good, accurate information and are safe doing it, because when we start talking about gas leaks, and we mentioned there was one near the Old Country Store reported by a storm spotter in Caledonia in the Steens area. So Old Country Store there with a gas leak. That's a situation we don't want. We know we have a lot of people that our hearts hurt and we want to help. We need to stay inside and let the authorities, let the people that are trained to do this help out now. There'll be more time to help out in the future, but now it's the time to protect ourselves and take care of keeping our families safe, and then let the authorities kind of handle things. We don't want a situation where we get people out there and then someone else ends up getting hurt. I do want to bring in our meteorologist John DeLusick here for a moment, continue to kind of assess things. John, what you got?
I just looked at the latest from the National Weather Service, some of the discussions they've been having about the storms around the area. This still lingering, the isolated tornadoes that we're having. However, one thing they wanted to note, overnight, from now until about the wee hours of tomorrow morning, we have the potential to see maybe 2 to 4 inches of additional rainfall in some areas, which they're concerned that it could lead to some flash flooding over portions of our area. So that's another concern that we have as we go through the overnight hours. Beyond the isolated tornadoes still happening, we will, between now and about 2 or 3 in the morning tomorrow morning, have some more redevelopment of some storms that will produce some very heavy rainfall. They say in the category of 1 to 2 inches an hour at times.
Absolutely. We've mentioned that before. I haven't mentioned that in hours, and thank you for bringing that back up, because that's huge. We talk about tornadoes. They're dangerous, they're damaging, as we've seen. More people die each year from flooding, not necessarily in our area, but nationwide. And when we look out here on just one projection here, we show, that in Lamar County, there are estimations in the last 3 hours of 4 inches of rainfall. I'm going to look at just what the 1 hour rainfall amount is on here as well. Again, one of many projections, a few spots well over an inch in the last hour. And then if I look kind of composite here, and this one will allow me to kind of put on some numbers. Actually, I was wrong. That shows up as about 5 inches there, Lamar County, some spots out near Euphora, about 4 inches, where we just had storm after storm after storm move through some of those locations. Rough stuff, to just kind of an insult on top of all of the other stuff that has gone along with this, unfortunately. I'm going to try to pull up, give me a moment here. So this is near one of the roads closed near Highway 12 and Jay Reynolds near the Steens area with power lines and such down. This is from Dean, a friend and spotter. And I'll pull up his video here. This, again, Lowndes County, some of the damage that we're talking about there. A similar location where Christopher was. I mean, as you can see, just a whole row of people trying to do their best to make things right. And that's the reason why, let those people whose job it is, the volunteer firefighters, the linemen, do their job. And let's not get out there and cause more issues tonight. There will be time to help out tomorrow. Funds that help out, that sort of thing. Let's bring in our meteorologist, Maggie McCauley, here for a moment. Maggie, what you got?
I was just telling you to look at that cell that's prompted that tornado warning. Southwest of Columbus, there's a small tornado debris signature.
Okay. So we might now have a tornado debris signature on there. Maggie's been watching it as we're kind of trying to do a couple of these other things. Let's see. So we would have, there's where it is. Hold on. Correlation, that's not a small one. That's pretty significant
Yeah, just
there, and it
updated.
lines up
Yeah.
perfectly. Okay, we have another one that's touched down. Went away from it for a second. Okay, so now let's double check that spot there. Yes. Okay, we have another tornado that's touched down. Confirmed tornado on the ground now, southwest of Columbus. Tornado observed by Doppler radar indicating, storm track Doppler radar indicating tornado damage here once again. So this is near Hardy Billups Road. This is just southwest of the GTR airport. So this is moving towards Swoop Road, Gilmore Wilburn Road. I'm going to bring this back to the road we're talking about here, Hardy Billups Road. So that blue area you see there, unfortunately, is tornado debris. We talked about it. It looks strong. It looks strong. It looks strong. And unfortunately, it's kind of taken that next step. So that's pretty much perfectly aligned with where it should. So to talk about our crews that are down there, just for behind-the-scenes purposes, they should be okay. They are north of 82 in Columbus. They're north of Steens, or out towards Steens. They should be fine. Our crews that are there. We will revisit that in a minute here. I want to. Now let's double check this. Hold on. I want to make sure our angle is correct. Hold on. That's more of a northeasterly angle than what it was doing a few minutes ago there. That's heading more toward Columbus. So yeah, that's heading more to, and that might just be the debris that's lofting that way. We should be seeing a stronger, hold on, first off, we will worry about whether I'm right or not here in a moment. Let's first show where this is going. Let's get that on your screen. I can worry about debating whether or not, you know, this here in a second. There's a whole long list there. But Columbus downtown, we're talking 802 for you. A GTR airport within the next 5 minutes. Locations, you can see a lot of different churches there on the southwest side of town involved in this. Columbus proper, this has headed more north in the last couple of scans. But what I have to kind of figure out here, if I can, is this, if this is the tornado debris we're looking at, should be brighter reds and pinks. It should be up in there, and it's not. So I'm trying to figure out whether the radar is just having some issues or what. You can see where we have that. The reason this is worth our time is I don't want to unnecessarily scare people. You go up a couple scans and it's there. I think we're just having some issues with the lowest scan on the radar. So this is coming up. This is not as, for lack of a better way to put it, hot or bright as it should. Okay, now that we've answered that, we're going to give up on the precipitation mode here for a while. Good news is that the wind mode is also weakened substantially. We still show the, yeah, that's heading basically toward the GTR airport. Hold on, let's find real quick here. Where are they at?
They're at
Caledonia Elementary School. That's fine.
Caledonia Elementary, is that good?
Yeah, they're far enough north there. They should be good. I mean, I wouldn't want to move them toward it. Moving away from it gives them a better chance. Okay.
That triangle that I set on your keyboard.
Yeah.
That was the store, the collapsed house, and the Malone's grocery. It's all within a 1.5 mile radius.
Okay, so we're talking about, you know, some of the damage that we have had there. I don't know. I'll tell you this: it might the tornado might have lifted at this point. I don't know. I want to go for sure with that, but it's still showing substantial debris, and it's still showing the wind is not what it was. But again, as we talked about a moment ago, I don't have a high level of confidence on what the radar is necessarily showing me right now. But I do think the positioning is right near that Gilmer Wilburn Road, moving toward GTR Airport on the kind of the west side of Columbus. This is, by the way, not the track we were talking about a minute ago, because this is taking a weird angle on the way it's just kind of pulled it north. Because as you can see, there's, I mean, if you look at just the lowest scan, there's basically nothing even showing up on the rainfall mode there. So still some debris likely lofted with this thunderstorm, causing some tornado damage on the west part there of town. It's not inconceivable that this is still on the ground at this point near the intersection there of Airport Road. I mean, we're basically at the GTR airport, right? So if you know where the airport is, then you know where this is. West Lowndes Elementary, or West Lowndes School should show up in our track. Columbus Middle School does, kind of on the north side there. Let me broaden this out a little bit and show up about as much as we can. So Billups Chapel we show at 7:50, 7:51 Motley Church, Motley School about 7:52, Lowndes County Vocational Tech Center, VOTEC Center 7:55, toward the Antioch Church at 8 p.m., 8:03 GTR Medical Center, and then Mount Carmel Church as it works its way about 8:06 or so. But at least in the last couple minutes here, this was likely a tornado touchdown. The wind has really kind of fallen apart on this, but still, we're making sure our folks are safe. It's better safe than wish we had after the fact. So that's why we're kind of moving them where they need to go. Make sure they're in a shelter. Speaking of shelter, give some shout outs to Safe Place Selfies Casey in the Caledonia area for a moment here, doing what needs to be done, doing what we recommend you would do if you're out here toward the GTR airport, and that would be, getting to that safe place. So if you know some folks out here, this is what we want. Whole family in there. Dad's not looking out the window. He's in there with the mom, with everybody else, trying to, okay. And our crews have moved to shelter. So I apologize, it'll be longer before we get you that video. We'd rather them be okay than risk it in this case. But near Gilbert, Wilburn Road is where our tornado probably is at this moment here. In that shelter is where we want you at this time, as we've had a confirmed tornado touchdown within the last couple minutes. It's probably right over top of Mississippi Highway 789 near Airport Road, basically at the GTR airport, moving toward Highway 82. Timed to US 82, and I should have been on this camera 3-4 minutes ago. But it might not have the best angle quite yet as we look back toward the west out of Columbus. And again, our atmosphere is still very primed. We talked about this earlier. When that measure of moisture is up there close to 70 as it is, we're still primed. We did not use up that most unstable air over top of Columbus. We mix things out more north of town. So, I mean, it's a close call. Luckily, I don't see the nonstop lightning we were seeing earlier. If you would, Maggie, and then remind me that it's there, let's pull up the Columbus US 82 camera looking west. It'd be the farthest west and southwest there. And just remind me it's there in a minute. As you can see, law enforcement, hard night for them. They're out there. You can see some of the rainfall building into this as that storm moves in on the west side there of Columbus at this time. So certainly watching. You got that up and ready to go? So I'm going to keep that up here on the side for a moment. We're going to keep that in as we go back to Storm Track Doppler radar so we can see it and bring that up full screen if we need to. So we're looking close to US 82. We're looking back to the west. That's where that camera is. It's kind of looking right down this portion of the highway there toward the 45 and 82 split. Back to the back and forth on this here. I think our lowest scan is just not showing us everything. I don't know what's going on up here at the radar, but clearly that's not showing up as it should there on whatever's going on the lowest here. So let's go up a couple scans and we'll see if it's new enough that we can take a look here. Still showing up fairly bright if you go up a couple of scans there, but also the western part of that just is not well formed on the rainfall mode there. Listen, if you've had a tornado touchdown in the last 5-10 minutes, as we have with what we've kind of had today, I think it's just worth playing it very cautious. And I hope you would agree with that. So let's go back to this camera here for a moment as we're looking back in Columbus on the west side of town. We should start to see more of that rain kind of coming in. But I mean, essentially in the precipitation mode, it didn't look terribly impressive a minute ago, to be honest. But within the last 10 minutes, we've had enough wind to cause what was a fairly significant tornado debris signature. So far, the folks, emergency managers there in Lowndes County, not reporting damage off of this one yet, but it's early. It's been within about 10 minutes of that. But we need to be stopping people that are heading west out of Columbus on 82. That's not what we should be doing now because whatever that circulation is, whether it's still a tornado, whether it's just some wind, it's basically crossing US 82 now. The wind mode here is, after being extremely well defined for hours on end, it's largely just fallen apart in the last 15 minutes or so. It produced a tornado likely. Or at least according to some of the damage that we've seen here on radar. probably just east of Penn's, just east of 45 alternate, and then, I mean, that's best case scenario. Hopefully that is the reality that has occurred. I don't mind chalking that up to prayers if you don't mind it. Let's reset here for just a second. Current time is 7:53 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologists Maggie McCauley, John DeLusick on a night where unfortunately we've had a number of tornado touchdowns. There have not been a lot, but we've had, I would say, at least 3, one of which has been significant. 2 of which have been damaging, well, one of which has been damaging for sure, and another one that we're still not sure in Lowndes County. That is the one we are still covering with this tornado warning that remains in effect for the next little bit here. Let's check the time on that till 8:15, and current time is 7:54. This is, I mean, just so many pictures continue to come in from that more significant tornado damage that was north of the Columbus area, and I just think it's a reminder that we just got to kind of keep popping these up and reminding folks that this is a trampoline that's clearly wrapped around something. Now, trampolines are easy to pick up and carry away. We say it's not a severe weather event until a trampoline's been damaged. But the point in saying that is that they're not safe because the wind gets below them and it's easy to pick it up. And that's kind of in the same vein of what happens when we start talking about mobile homes, is wind can get below it and pick them up and turn them over and do all kinds of bad things with it. And so that's one of the concerns that we end up having. Maggie, do you still have that camera in Columbus up? If you would, I'm going to pull it up again here for a moment because, I mean, I don't show hardly anything looking at the wind mode here for a second. Let's go back to that. I mean, the wind, it's bouncing around, but for a hot second there when we first went to the camera, we saw kind of some sheets of rainfall. That's not what we see right now. So that's not a bad thing. It's better than seeing something that we don't want to see out of it. I'm going to look out of a couple other cameras here around the north side of Columbus. And again, our atmosphere is still primed for storms over the next few hours. Still some traffic out, still some people out. Not as much lightning, not as much of everything out of this thunderstorm as what we had out of the first one that produced the more significant tornado touchdown earlier. And frankly, just looking at rainfall mode, it's kind of fallen completely apart, and hopefully that's where we're left with this. Let's look at the debris mode there. I mean, it still kind of shows a little bit of what's probably settling out, but as we talked about earlier, it gets lofted and it takes a while to settle out, and so that's still kind of the zone where that could be something. And because of the way you know, the season we're in, sometimes the leaves from the trees get picked up and they take a long time to settle out, then come up with a really bright return. And if so hopefully that's the case, that we're looking more of that sort of situation. As we widen out, we have more and more thunderstorms that are continuing to kind of build in for the northwest portion of the viewing area. Now, this is a zone here where we have not had even watches necessarily issued today, that we earlier had some stronger thunderstorms. And we know that our threat doesn't drop to 0 until after the final line way back out here kicks through. And that's still some time from now. Let's take a look here for a moment. And before we do, just a note here for a second, the National Weather Service, I think on the same page with us, canceling the tornado warning for the Columbus area. That storm has completely fallen apart. Remains to be seen whether or not there was significant damage from that second tornado. Hopefully it's not the case. But when you kind of look back to the west, unfortunately, look back toward Vicksburg. What do we have? We have another one that's prompted tornado warnings, and let's see how fast that one is moving there. Because unfortunately, as we talked about, it's the number of potential chances, as well as the fact that if tornadoes sat down, they could be strong, that both kind of worked into this threat. So we show radar indicated tornado warning there, and that's part of that thunderstorm that's moving northeast at 40 miles per hour. John, for a second, if you give us an overview on where things stand, the watch for just a moment here. And we'll kind of go from there. I can switch you places, or you can do it from there. We can do it over. Let's do it from Cam 3 for just a second, if we would, please. Okay. So we'll go to John for a moment.
So we've got still the watch here as we go into the wee hours of our Wednesday morning. We do have the potential still for some tornadic activity, as Matt mentioned. Still some development near Vicksburg and around the Jackson area, so that could be heading into our neck of the woods here later on this evening. But as a matter of fact, we still mention the potential for heavy rainfall. Right now getting some moderate to heavy rainfall in the Tupelo area, and there's a lot more of that as you work your way westward and northwestward into northern sections of Mississippi and into portions of western Tennessee and eastern Arkansas. A lot of that will be flowing through our way as we go through the overnight hours. So on top of the potential for some isolated tornadoes over the next several hours, still the potential for some flooding, and even in between everything, some hail not out of the question every now and then. So Matt, we're still a long ways from over. However, let's just hope and pray that we can survive, I think, the flash flooding or the rain. You know, I know that flooding kills a lot of folks, but if we can just get rid of these long-tracked potential tornadoes, I think we'll be at least in one step in the right direction.
I completely agree with that, John. So a couple things we're going to do here. Number one, I think we're going to send folks back to regular scheduled programming coming up at 8 o'clock. So for the folks in the back room, our last tornado warning's been lifted. And as I look at radar here for a moment, the next ones we're considering are those ones back there kind of closer to Vicksburg. So if those are going 40 miles an hour, let's kind of do the long track on them and find out how long until it makes it back into our area. And it's possible, as you can see, more thunderstorms kind of developing back west of Greenville. I mean, we're by no means done, and that flooding rainfall, because of all the rounds, unfortunately, is a consideration. So if we're looking at the most reasonable ones that we're looking way back there, what are we talking about? Some times we begin Kosciuszko about 9:30 or so. We're showing closer to Louisville about 10:30. This is assuming 40 miles per hour. Could it pick up speed? Absolutely a possibility. Listen, if we look at a situation here and we think there's a chance that one of these could try to produce another tornado, we're going to cut back in. But for now, we're going to send you back to regularly scheduled programming. We'll have live reports and updates coming up at 9 o'clock on WLOV Fox News and, of course, 10 o'clock on ABC and NBC. Keep it here for the latest.